Hello, good morning, everyone, and pardon for the fashionably late start. We've had quite a busy morning already with some Finance and Audit Committee business and just making sure we've got all the latest and greatest ready for our board business meeting today. I'd like to welcome you all to the Board of Directors meeting for January 24th, 2024. And we're gathered here at the University of Oregon's White Stag Building in downtown Portland for today's board meeting. And as always, we also have our live stream going out, and I welcome all of those that are here online today to today's board meeting. We have all board members here in person today, and I want to thank all of them for being here with us, as well as all of you for being here with us today. So we're going to begin, as we customarily do, with our public forum. Members of the public who wish to provide testimony but could not be here in person can also join us virtually, and I believe we may have someone joining us virtually as well here in just a moment. For those of you who are here in person for the public testimony, I will be calling up to the public testimony table, which is here before us, as two at a time. And I'd like to ask those testifying to please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. That's the purpose of our gathering here today. And I also ask that you limit your public testimony to 3 minutes. We do have a timer, and if you do see the timer up, there will be the light on the table will go from green to yellow to red. I would respectfully ask you to please honor that so that we can hear from you and be able to move forward with our board business as well. If you do so wish, you may also submit public testimony in writing. And if you need any help with being able to do so, I'll direct you to our staff to my right, who can help you with the TriMet email address where you can do that. Let's see here. Now, let me see who we've got for our public testimony. Give me a second. I saw it a second ago. Here we go. We have one person signed up this morning for public testimony here in person. So I'd like to ask Dan Hagan to please join us here at the public testimony table. The microphones have a button on the front. If it's green, that means it's live. And if it's not, go ahead and press the button. And then we can hear you here as well as online.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm a bit of a fish out of water, obviously. I'm not a morning person, and I'm not customarily used to board meetings. As I was just doing some research in regards to TriMet and the fares, I was a bit shocked to find out that with the fare increases, TriMet has put itself as being the 5th most expensive in the world. Now, I just want to go down a list of things that, of kind of expectations, or at least put in perspective where TriMet is in relation to especially Los Angeles is one example, and New York is the other extreme, kind of. So regular fare riders in a 7-day period in Los Angeles, the max is $18. New York, the max is $34. And in TriMet, it's $39. Now, Los Angeles and New York cap their fares. So once you cross 18, it's free after that. TriMet has no policy like that. Cleaning is a big issue as well. This was just, as I came across some Twitter feeds from New York, irrelevant to public transit, but LA has increased their, and they have this in their budget, 13% increase in cleanliness and cleaning. And I do know that I saw that you guys had increased, I don't know if it was 24 hours every shift or whatever for the trains and buses, and then once every 30 days you do an interior detailing. but I'm not sure how much of an investment that has been. That's actually probably been the biggest complaint when I and other people ride it, is the cleanliness of the trains, especially in comparison to New York City, which is like spotless. They look brand new. So it's kind of, and they have invested $300 million per year that they're going to now continue on throughout from COVID. Let's see. So, and then low-income riders here. Now in Los Angeles, it's, in Los Angeles, the first 20 rides are free, regardless. After that, there's 75 cents. In New York, each ride is $1.45 for low-income people. TriMet is $1.40. That's 5 cents less than the most expensive in the country. And then, oh, 2 minutes up, 3 minutes up, okay. Would I be able to just like 30 seconds more? I was just gonna go down a quick list of comparisons of like several international cities. Monthly bus passes.
I would appreciate if you submit it in writing. That would be helpful. The board can receive it, and I think it'll be a better way to digest that information.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Would I be able to, I think I'm supposed to attach it to that form. Is that right?
You can, if you'd like, here you could submit a paper,
Okay.
and they'll make copies for us and distribute.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your comments, Dan. I appreciate it. And we also have someone online who has signed up. Are they logged in? They have not logged in. Andy Frazier, if you're out there, this is a good time to log in and join us. I'm going to just take a sip of this and see if that worked, but I don't know. No dice. Well, thank you very much. Again, thank you for public testimony. And if you did sign up, Andy, I apologize if you were unable to bring your comment in time. You can also submit any comment in writing. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to welcome the TriMet board. Let me see here. I just jumped ahead. So now, I would like to now bring up the next item in our agenda. With no other members of the public signed up, I'm going to close the public forum and now open the general board business meeting. Seems like a good time to do that. Okay, let's begin with board reports. I'd like to first invite Director Kim to provide a board report on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, otherwise known as MPAC. Director Kim.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. At the December MPAC meeting, Metro provided an update on the buildable lands inventory. This inventory is conducted to inform the urban growth boundary decision, and this analysis evaluates whether there's enough room within the current boundary to accommodate the expected household and job growth. The results of this analysis will be included in the draft urban growth report this summer. City of Sherwood staff also presented their Sherwood West concept plan, which is their long-range plan to guide the future development of this urban reserve area west of the city. The city is hoping to expand into the area for both employment and housing, and it will require an expansion of the metro urban growth boundary before being eligible for annexation or development. AMPAC meets again tonight to provide input on the original climate action plan, which is being developed as part of the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Plan grant. We'll also discuss the economic and demographic conditions that will inform our upcoming decision on the urban growth boundary expansion with an expert panel. Thank you.
Thank you for that board report, Director Kim. Do we have any questions or comments from other board members about the MPAC report? Well, I know this is the urban growth boundary discussion is one near and dear to our region. People have a lot of feels about it. We look forward to hearing what comes through that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to go to Director Edwards and invite Director Edwards to provide a report on the latest CAT committee meeting. That's the Committee on Accessible Transit.
This is from the December 20th meeting. Jan Campbell opened the meeting. Jan Campbell is the chair, of course. with a moment of silence for the previous CAP member, Arnie Panich, and she shared stories from the memorial held in his honor. There was an update from the LIFT subcommittee, which included discussion on CAT's involvement in the ADA training, new operator bus and rail training, as well as operator recertification. Staff provided updates on upcoming CAT committee membership recruitment. New customer facing technology at Lyft to provide riders with imminent arrival and late trip notifications, and a reminder of the January fare increase. Committee members provided feedback on some challenges with hop readers at MAX platforms, indicating that low vision blind travelers are having problems always locating the hop activator. TriMet fare inspectors may need sensitivity training to help in response to this challenge. A presentation was provided by Michael Corrente, Senior Project Manager from Engineering and Construction, who is leading the design for the redeveloped Oregon City and Beaverton Transit Centers. He was seeking input from the committee and noted that we will be contracting with the Orientation and Mobility Program at PSU to obtain recommendations on promising practices for improving wayfinding for visually impaired riders. January meeting was then canceled due to extreme weather. That's why there's no January report.
Thank you very much, Director Edwards. Are there any comments or questions from fellow board members about Director Edwards' CAT committee meeting? All right, hearing none, thank you, Director Edwards, for that report. Now, I'd like to move to Director Lewis, who is going to be reporting on this morning's Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Director Lewis.
Good morning, and thank you, Director Gonzalez. This morning, myself, Director Way, and Director Gonzalez, TriMet staff attended 8 o'clock before the meeting, the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Excellent meeting. Initially, we first started with a quarterly financial report update from Cara Fitzpatrick. It really was an overview on the first 6 months, our budgets to actuals, basically compared year to year. It also included our balance sheet and net position, our investment portfolio at year end, and then an overview of passenger revenue, operating revenue, our system operating expenses, and operating project expenses. There is a handout for the board members here for the actual details of that. Next, we had a update from Nancy Young-Oliver on our budget transfer discussion that will be presented to the board in February. There will be a few line item changes from legal expense to customer service, but it does not affect or will not affect our budget bottom line or any of our contingencies. Next, Kingston Sprague, new to the group, provided, and hopefully everyone here will have the opportunity to look at our new investor relations webpage. To access that, just go to TriMetBond.com. It's new. I think it was released publicly December 16th. It gives an excellent overview. I think my best takeaway was the overview of all of our major projects, which provides information for any of those that are seeking to buy TriMet bonds. It's an excellent new tool. Please visit that webpage. And thank you for the work for that team to bring that. It's a first for us, and it puts us in line with any of the other transit organizations around the United States. Make sure I'm reading my notes sideways and forward here. Oh, and then one of the key points that Kingston pointed out that we did review best practices. So just please check out the TriMetBond.com. Lastly was the overview from Sophia Franklin on our fare increase implementation, and basically the takeaway was all systems were a go when it was launched pretty much first year, not anticipating that New Year's Day was a free day, So there was some balancing of that. Other than that, it was an excellent meeting that crammed a lot of information in 45 minutes. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Director Lewis. Any questions or comments from fellow board members on the Finance and Audit Committee report? Well, thank you for that report, and kudos to staff involved in the transition process and in the rollout of the new bond program website. Okay, now I'd like to direct us to a next board report from Director Frisbee. Director Frisbee, are there any, can you please illuminate us on the report from TEAC, Transit Equity and Advisory Committee?
Of course. The Transit Equity and Advisory Committee met on Tuesday, January 9th of 2024. I have to confess that I missed that meeting due to a family health issue, so thank you to the TEAC team for soldiering ahead. They were updated on the new DEBE contract, which we discussed at our last board meeting, advancing or awarding money to Advanced Tribal for bus shelter repair. This is building on the work they did on the Division Street project, so it's very exciting. They were reminded about the fare changes that took place January 1st, and a reminder that those fare changes are for day passes and 2-hour tickets. The monthly pass cost remains the same. They got updated on the new cleaning approach, which we heard in some of the discussion of in the public comment, and reminder about the MAX service disruption due to Better Red, which we will now see an extra week due to the work that all of our team had to do throughout the storm. The engagement team brought an overview of the upcoming service changes. That round of outreach is beginning, or the first round of outreach has already happened. The second round will kick off at the end of this month. Folks will also be talking about the closing of the Skidmore Fountain Max Station, which the board discussed last month as well. Finally, the IDEA team noted that the Fare Subsidy Work Group has finally chosen a consulting firm to move ahead with their review of the concept of fare equity and fareless programs around the country. So I think the other piece to notice for TEAC is we are doing one-on-one meetings with current TEAC stakeholders to get feedback and thoughts on how to make that advisory committee effective. I think we're having some challenges right now with sort of attendance and engagement during the course of the meeting, and want to figure out ways to make it work better so that folks really feel free to engage and share their feedback.
Thank you very much for that report, Director Frisbee. Any comments or questions from fellow board members? Well, I would love to simply acknowledge gratitude for all of the community benefit organizations that do participate, that have participated, and that will participate. I encourage in that engagement to please acknowledge the important role they serve in the rollout of things like the HOP card and fare changes, in how we bring these services and these new updates to the community. I'm really grateful for the role they have helped us in getting folks enrolled in the low-income fare program, and getting those new HOP cards rolled out so that when they utilize them, they're more apt to take advantage of the fare cap that we have in place. So I'm really grateful for all of that. And if folks are not aware of the low-income fare program, the new HOP cards, and the monthly cap that is embedded in the use of the HOP cards, please reach out to TriMet or to any of your community organizations that are participating with TriMet, or a community organization that you're connected with, because these resources are all out there available, and we rely heavily on our community partners, part of TEAC, to make those things available and accessible to the community. So they're instrumental, and I hope that those conversations are fruitful.
Yes, and just to be clear, I think the real question is how can we make sure we are providing value to them in this space as well? Because I think, to your point, they have done incredible work, particularly around some of the low-income fare work, on behalf of TriMet, and really helped make some of those programs successful. And we want to make sure that that goes both ways.
That is a fair question to engage with them on. Thank you so much, Director Frisbee, for your work. All right. Now, if there are no other questions or comments about TIAC report, I'd like to now direct us to Director Kellogg, who is going to report on the Crash Advisory Committee, CAC.
Thank
Director
you.
Kellogg?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. The TriMet Crash Advisory Committee began meeting in May of 2020 pursuant to Oregon House Bill 1503. This was my first meeting on the Crash Advisory Committee, taking over for the able service that Dr. Lewis provided. For those of you who don't know, the role of the committee is to review any kind of collision with a TriMet asset, whether that's our asset hitting something else or something hitting a TriMet. Now, while we try to avoid as many crashes as we can, as you know, being on the roads, these things happen. So, at our meeting in December, we reviewed 9 crashes, including 1 fatality. I want to thank particularly Libby Winter, who provided all of the videos and everything for the members of the committee to review these crashes. In reviewing the crashes, our goal is to determine what exactly happened and if there's anything that we can do infrastructure-wise, operator-wise, to improve upon the operation of our service. In that context, the committee provided its first set of recommendations to the general manager. I want to point out one of those recommendations in particular is to put some cameras on the actual MAX vehicles. For the buses, we have an array of cameras so you can see what happened in pretty much all directions when there's any incident. But for the MAX trains, it's really looking at cameras that are on the track system, not on the trains themselves. So one of the recommendations is to get those cameras on the train to get one better view of what happened. So we will meet again in 2024, but I want to stop and thank the outgoing committee members who provided 2 years of service, as well as to welcome those new committee members that will be coming in spring of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Are there any questions or comments about the Crash Advisory Committee report from fellow board members? Well, thank you, Director Kellogg. The only thing I can think to acknowledge is, you know, as a community, we've all come through a pretty crazy last couple of days. And if it isn't weather-related, whether it's weather-related or not, you know, we've seen fatalities, not just in the system, but in our community. It's impacted members of our committees recently, and never is there a better reminder about the value and the preciousness of life and that thin line between this side and the other side than when we lose a loved one. And so I'd like to just take a quick moment of silence for all of those that have perished through our weather, on our system and off our system, as powerful reminders of how precious it is to be here each day. Thank you very much. And thank you, Director Kellogg, for your report. And now I'd like to turn us to our General Manager for his monthly performance report. General Manager Dessou.
Morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board, TriMet staff, the public, our community partners. Thank you all for being here this morning with us. So this morning, we will share timely information with you about a couple of things. One is we will be addressing last week's storm and the unprecedented challenges it created for our region and also for TriMet. We're going to also provide an update on the Better Ed project and the planned services disruption that was impacted by the storm. And then we'll share some exciting news from our December ridership and update you on the outreach around our Forward Together and service improvements plan in the coming fiscal year. You'll get updates on our efforts to increase our overnight maintenance window on the MAX system, as well as what's new with our business plan development. And then finally, you're going to meet some TriMet heroes that are here in the room who really work together to get a person in a medical crisis the urgent treatment that he needed. So let's start off here. Let me just begin with this week-long storm that really devastated our region and led to a statewide state of emergency. While our aim at TriMet is to always maintain our transit services, safety is always first and paramount with us, for our riders, for our employees, and the storm that literally blew in on Saturday, January 13th, made it impossible for us to continue service in some of our areas. We stood up an emergency operations center at our operations headquarters in Southeast Portland, even before the brutal weather actually arrived. Teams formed throughout the agency, reported in person and virtually around the clock that actually took place, very tirelessly coordinated and maintaining and restoring service through the storm, communicating about the storm and the impacts that it was having on our service. Our EOC, as it's called, it stretched through 8 days, 192 straight hours, the longest EOC activation in recent memory. And I've been here for 4 years, coming up on 5, and I've not seen that here. The combined elements of the storm that came day after day after day that occurred led to paralyzing conditions, widespread damage, high wind gusts, trees uprooted, power outages, ice covering everything. As challenge after challenge after challenge came up for us, our employees, our dedicated employees, rose to the occasion again and again and again. And you can only imagine how demanding it was for our employees in the Operations Command Center to coordinate the safety of our staff, our vehicles, and the entire system. Our union staff, our field staff, our operators, our maintenance workers, so many others, our supervisors, our coordinators braved what had to be some of the most challenging weather conditions that we face. Despite those conditions, and many employees working out there in the overnight hours, employees used traction cleats that we issued them, and I'm relieved to hear that we had no significant injuries among our staff that was reported. While it would take hours and hours for me to continue on and touch on all of the efforts that all of our employees and our contracted partners provided us throughout the storm, I just want to share with you just a very short video that just shows the tip of the iceberg of what we went through. So please play the video. You know, you see how life moves. It was just absolutely touching there. I want to also personally thank our riders for their understanding. Some of those that was shared in the video that we seen, while we would have rather provided regular service, our MAG system throughout our bus routes and for our Lyft paratransit riders, the storm and the challenges it brought made that very impossible for us. The bitter cold, the extreme conditions also led to our counties and our service district opening emergency shelters. They hosted a record number of people. We made a point of letting everyone know that no one would be turned away, trying to reach a warmer shelter if they were unable to pay their fare. What you may not know is that TriMet went further than that. Our lift operations assisted Multnomah County in transferring people between shelters due to the overcrowding. Our safety response teams worked throughout the storm to try to get people out of the bitter conditions and into those shelters. They made more than 350 referrals for people to be admitted into emergency shelters. Often say that it takes a village. To overcome this storm, it definitely took a village. I also want to just thank our PGE, President Maria Pope, and the entire PGE staff, Pacific Power, really working with us to restore power in areas where outages blocked efforts to get MAG service rolling. And that was at our Ruby Junction station. We lost full transmission of power at that location, and we made calls to make sure that that happened. I want to thank our partners at PBOT, ODOT, and all 3 counties as well, working through the storm to try to keep roads open, especially on our main bus routes. And then I want to thank our contractors that helped us through the storm. Snugs, Columbia Pressure Washing, Valleyscapes, Advanced Tribal, Raymore Construction, Stacy Whitback, and CM3. And then finally, I want to say this to all of our employees, those of you that are here, and I'm emotional here for a moment. Damn it, you are heroes. You're heroes. And I'll do anything for you. And I want you to know that. I want you to hear that from me, period, to you. I have literally been brought to tears this week by the dedication, the determination, the sacrifice of our employees involved in this massive effort that you have shown during this unprecedented storm. And I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you for that. Give me a moment. Thank you all. Now I'd like to move on to another update. Our Better Ed work, it's been scheduled to start on Sunday, January 15th. The storm paralyzed the region. It delayed our planned disruption for the Better Ed project. Service was suspended. Conditions were unsafe for our staff and our contracted crews to begin work as scheduled. With the challenges to restore MAG service stretching through the week and the need to move trains in position to start that planned disruption, we delayed the start of the shutdown to Gateway Transit Center until Sunday, January 21st. That means that we needed to shift the end date of the disruption to complete all of the work necessary. So now we look forward to restoring MAG service through Gateway Transit Center, opening the new Gateway North Station, and putting reliability improvements of the project into operation beginning Monday, March 4th. Crews were actually able to get a bit of the construction underway before the full shutdown began on Sunday, including some of the work on the track and the new station. But understandably, the conditions weren't the best. So I do want to share with you that our contractors for the project noticed our calls for help with the storm issues, and they quickly shifted to assist us in removing snow and ice from the trackways, our rail crossings, our platforms. They helped us remove trees from the overhead wires, and really made repairs on the west side. We didn't show you the full effect. I sent you some of the pictures of trees laying down on top of our OCS cables. We couldn't even operate, and we had these contractors really come out to really help us to get through. So I am very thankful that they acknowledged the unique situation and answered the bell when we called them to be there. They did not hesitate at all to help you. So I just want to thank all of our contractors as well. Next, I'm happy to really share some positive news with you about our December ridership. We provided more than 5.2 million rides in December. It's a 20% increase from December of 2022. And with nearly 1.2 million rides per week, our ridership reached 68% of pre-pandemic levels, with max ridership coming into at least 70% of pre-pandemic levels. Ridership on the weekends were particularly strong, reaching nearly 82% of pre-pandemic levels. So traditionally, December is not a high ridership month. These numbers are very, very encouraging to see. So what I will ask you, Board, is please keep in mind, however, that January's ridership numbers, when I come back to you, will not be heavily impacted by this month's extreme weather. So want to say that. So thank you. Moving now on to our service plans for the future and our continued rollout of our Forward Together improvements. Among those improvements, we're going to aim to expand our frequent service network by 3 additional bus lines. So meaning that service will be at every bus stop every 15 minutes or less, and extend service hours on multiple lines in the coming year and a half. And I just want to make sure that I caveat that this is obviously dependent on our operator recruitment and our retention numbers that we're working on. We begin our outreach on the plans for the remainder of our fiscal year, 2024, and for fiscal year 2025, with open houses events starting tomorrow. So as we get to your districts, we'll be reaching out to you to make sure that we have you involved there. We are going to also provide both a virtual and an in-person event. Will be held. We're going to be taking feedback online all the way through February 11th. And those details are posted at trimet.org/plan, or people can reach out to our customer service team at 503-238-RIDE. Again, 503-238-RIDE. As we're moving forward on an effort that will lead to making a huge difference in our focus to improve and maintain our MAX system, that in turn will improve the overall experience for our customers. Staff right now, we're putting together a plan for our network of MAX night buses that's going to run, and this is going to expand our Orange night bus line that's been in operation since 2015. And that Orange Line night bus will provide some trips after train service ends for night. So added night buses to all of our MAX lines to provide late night and early morning service in place of trains will provide us with a larger window for overnight maintenance projects. And as the team shared at our retreat for the board in November, we currently just have a 47-minute window in which no trains are on the alignment. And one of the things I want to say is that this is one of the smallest windows of any light rail system in the United States. And it really drastically restricts the maintenance activities that we can complete without really disrupting service. So we're analyzing the appropriate times for the night buses, but plan to provide the same span of service as the MAX trains currently run. So when we do start running the buses, so we're gonna do that. And we expect to establish these in phases. So the Orange night bus extending to the Yellow Line will start as early as June, and then others will start following as our operator staffing levels support that. So now on to our business plan. As you're aware, the plan guides our efforts to fulfill our mission, to connect people with transit that is safe, convenient, reliable, accessible, and welcoming. and it's an ever-evolving as we move forward with our Vision 2030. I'd like to bring Alan Lato up front. He's our Senior Director of Planning. He's been working on updating his plan, and he joins us now with the latest developments. Alan.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou, Mr. Board President, and members of the board. Just want to give you a quick rundown of our status with the business plan and a sort of orientation to the document, not talk you through the whole thing. But it will be posted in the next few days, available for public review, and we do have a comment period between now and the end of February, actually March 1st, and then we'll be planning to bring back a final business plan reflecting any comments on that to you at your March board meeting. That will be timed along with the proposed budget. So the business plan we've had since, I think it's 2017. It's a 5-year strategic plan with a focus on the next year's work, but going out 5 years. And we update it each year because conditions change, and we need to reflect that. But we do try to keep our eye on the longer range as well. This year is a special case for the business plan. The Vision 2030, which you've heard about a number of times and has been discussed at this board meeting and elsewhere, really guides the work for TriMet over the next 6 years. And it's imperative for the usefulness of the business plan and the focus of Vision 2030 that the two are really saying the same thing. So we have reorganized and reformatted the business plan to convey the expectations of Vision 2030. They are informed by each other. They are essentially the same thing. So if you could start with the cover, actually. What's on the cover this year is a photo from a meeting of a broad range of directors and managers across the agency where we got together for a half day to really drill down into what does Vision 2030 mean to us? What kinds of things are we going to need to do to make that commitment? And so that reflects the spirit of the new business plan. The next page then just talks about the purpose in the region. This has been in the business plan for a number of years, and it's something that TriMet has looked to for even longer than that. When you dig down, we're paying attention to ridership, of course. We are paying attention to the quality of service. We are paying very close attention to equity. We are paying attention to all kinds of needs. When you dig down into the heart of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it, these 5 bullet points are trying to convey that, along with our mission and values, which are on a later page. The next page then conveys the Vision 2030 and the 5 pillars as you've had described to you and as the team has put together in terms of what do we really need to focus on. There are some key focus areas in each of those, and you can see each pillar has a letter, each focus area has a letter number combination. It is somewhat reminiscent of the goals and objectives of the previous business plan, and in fact, I don't have a graphic here, but if you look at the categories of the business plan, they map on very well to the 5 pillars of this structure for Vision 2030. And so the pyramid that used to be in the business plan, we're kind of bidding it a fond farewell and focusing in on the 5 pillars so that we have that laser focus on what we need to do to achieve 120 million boardings by the end of the year 2030. Those 5 pillars then set the organization for the rest of the business plan. And then if you move forward to, page 9 within the document, great. The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, we update that each year. It's our effort to be really honest with ourselves about what kinds of things are strengths and opportunities and what kinds of things might be weaknesses and challenges for us to shore up and pay attention to. And these help inform our conversation about what should be in the business plan and how we put together actions to try and make progress. And then a few pages farther on, starting on page 15, there's a series of measures that reflect the 5 different pillars. and the performance so far within FY24, as well as the performance last year in FY23 reported in the last business plan. Then onto page 19 is the overall, it's a repeat of the strategy with the 5 pillars, but we wanted to have the 5 pillars up in front of the document as close as possible, so that's why it's repeated here. But this gives the structure of what you can see on the screen now, which is the first pillar. Each one has a restatement of the pillar and the focus areas. It's got a section that talks about the results and the progress made so far within this fiscal year, or in some cases, progress made since the last business plan was published. But you'll see a lot has occurred already. We've made a lot of progress. We still have more to do, of course. We're just past halfway through our fiscal year, but a lot of progress has been made, and these are summarized here. Then on to the next page. The actions. That's the core of what actually comes out of the business plan, the actions, the prioritized actions, as opposed to the previous business plan, which had them broken into the 12 goals. This is now solidified, simplified, clarified into 5 pillars, and each of them is identified along with when the action is really happening, whether it's FY25, 26, beyond out to FY29. So without going into the details, but you can see each of the actions, we've identified a lead division because an action without the actor is pretty useless. We are very clear, or we try to be very clear about whose responsibility and whose accountability each of these are. So that's part of how we manage the plan during the year internally. But this gives the overview in a very, hopefully, clear and concise presentation. One of the things I'm happy about with this business plan is we really need to focus. We really need to be clear what we're working on. This business plan is 42 pages. Last year's business plan was 70 pages. So it's a simpler structure. It's clearer. It's clearer to those of us who have been working a lot on it. It also appears so far to be clear to all of TriMet employees so that we're all on the same page, literally. That's all I wanted to share on the business plan. As I said, the next steps are during the month of February. We'll have a comment period. I will be sharing this, or staff will, with the Committee on Accessible Transportation and the Transportation Equity Advisory Committee. It is, or it will be soon, posted on the public website and available for comment by any stakeholders or anybody in the region. We'll pull together comments at the end of February, the beginning of March, and then be able to pull together what we would expect would be the final in March, as we typically try to do each year.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan, for that presentation. Any board members have questions or comments for either Alan or the general manager on the general manager's report? Director Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question and a comment, I guess, for Alan. Thank you for that report, Alan. I guess my first question is, we went from 72 to 44 pages. Was that just condensed, or was it, do we lose some things?
A lot of what we I'm going to put in quotes, lost, is structure. So the fact that we had 12 different goals in the 4 different categories, and each goal had at least one objective, we ended up with 34 objectives. A number of things in the structure needed to be split out between those. And so it's harder to find individual items within that, even though we were trying to provide focus. This allows us to both consolidate but also hone the actions. So there are fewer actions because we're more clear about what needs to be done to deliver on these 5 pillars.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say SWAT, but it's, I guess, SWAC.
Try to think of them as challenges rather than threats, but yeah, same idea.
On the weaknesses side, I'd like to see us concentrate a little bit more on the inconsistency that we have with our lip service. that's been a struggle that we've had for quite some time. And I think that that's something that needs to be really tied down because it's really inconsistent and it really raises havoc with our folks that use the lift service. Also, the wayfinding for disabled and seniors as well. I think we could do some more enhancements there as well. So if we could look more at those particular issues, and of course, consulting CAT would be a big bonus, I think, for helping us address those issues.
Absolutely, thank you, and I'll follow up with the ATP staff as well as with CAT on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Director Frisbee?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the report. I echo the general feeling that it was much easier for me to digest and work through as someone who's a little bit chagrined by how challenging I sometimes find last year's business plan. This was really digestible, so I really appreciate it. And I loved the alignment with Vision 2030, so thank you. I can imagine that was not an easy process, and so really appreciate that work, and thanks to your team. I sent a bunch of questions off, and I really want to thank you to everyone who answered them, so I'm not going to go through all of them. I did have two quick thoughts under the strengths, and again, we don't call it threats, and we don't call, we do directly call it weaknesses. An additional strength I thought you might want to consider including is the sort of history of TriMet as a transit leader. And I think that's worth acknowledging. And I think it's something we all feel that we want to live up to. And then I think it is worth being blunt under weaknesses that we are behind on a BRT system as compared to most other agencies of our size. And so I would love to see that called out because I know that is a priority for us now and something that we will need to do if we're going to meet our Vision 2030 goals.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not done. Sorry, Alan. Thank you to the folks who helped me break down how many increases we need year over year for 120 and the answers around collision. Mea culpa, I had sent a question asking about what we need to do to meet our goals on better red, and what I meant was better bus. So that's on me. You're all like, we're fine. Yeah, I shouldn't read these at midnight. So I would love to just, Mark and I talked this morning, but I would love to have it noted. I think that program is really important. We've seen really impressive gains in terms of reducing delay and increasing frequency and on-time performance for frankly not that much money, and at least compared to the grand scheme of things. And those sort of quicker one-off projects, I think, help restore trust and belief that we're working to improve things. So I was disappointed to see in the accountability section that we haven't met the goal of 5 projects this year, and we actually didn't meet it the year before. And so I'm just expressing my hope that we can turn that around. I know Mark answered some of my questions, so I appreciate that. That was that. Thank you very much. Are we commenting on the whole general manager's report now too?
Yes.
Or do you want to
go for it? You've got
wait?
the floor.
Sorry.
I have one more.
There's
update.
more?
Right.
There's always more. Well, I will just say I deeply appreciate the work of everyone during this ice storm. It was miserable for those of us who are not having to deal with keeping a transit agency running. So thank you. And in particular, I had 2 wonderful experiences with TriMet operators. One who helped someone who was unhoused on Friday in our neighborhood who was struggling to access the system and get to a shelter. And this bus driver was incredibly kind and generous and followed up with me to let me know that they got dropped off at the right place. So just appreciate so much that commitment to the community. And Nessa, I'm looking at you and your team. Thank you. And then also a bus driver who was very kind as I was trying to get my son to a doctor's appointment and we couldn't drive. So again, thank you to both of X2 drivers who were really just went above and beyond. So thank you. I hope you all feel proud. I also hope you have gotten sleep. No, Bonnie says no. Well, I will continue to hope for that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. And on the business plan update, since I know the general manager's report is not yet concluded, words matter, and I guess, instead of threats, challenges, I understand the nuance there. I just wanted to echo another nuance with regards to the term business. I've heard a lot of interesting reactions to the concept of a public agency having a business plan, and I just want to remind us all, and I have remind myself often, it's not that it's a for-profit entity, it's not that sort of business, it's the thing that we are busy doing. It's the other definition of business. And seeing the streamlined version of this really helps us focus on not only what we're busy doing, but how all those pieces start to fit together. So thank you, Alan, for going through that process, for the alignment, and for bringing the agency along with it. I know that, it's not your document, it's the agency's document, and I could clearly see the authorship coming from all of the departments in this. So kudos to you and to the agency at large for going through that process and for really beginning to focus where you're going to be busy. General Manager DeSue, bring us home.
All right, thank you. Finally, you likely saw the news coverage on how a TriMet bus operator helped transport an individual in a medical crisis to the hospital early morning of New Year's Eve when there was no ambulances available. So I want to capitalize on that. Vice President Lewis reached out to me about recognizing that operator and really thanking him publicly at this meeting for his heroic effort. I was more than happy to arrange that. But as Operator Joe Wiggins, who is center, has shared, this was not his effort alone. It involved a team of employees who helped coordinate it, what may have been life-saving transportation for the man experiencing chest pains. Along with Joe, we have Road Supervisor Hassan, who assisted Joe at the scene, along with Assistant Manager Chia Claro, who was in charge in the Operations Command Center that morning. Joe and Hassan radioed in asking for permission to proceed with the transport. Chia made the decision to do what needed to be done. I had also hoped to have dispatcher Zoe Owens here this morning as well. Her timely coordination between Chia and Joe and Hassan was critical. Unfortunately, she was unable to be here with us this morning. I want to let you know, Board, that TriMet works with first responders quite regularly to provide support to our communities in times of need, but this was a step above. And I could not be more in awe, absolutely in awe, of the compassion that you showed, all of you showed, to get this person the help that they needed and what he needed so desperately there. So, and I can't thank you enough here. And I just want to ask a couple of questions here. Just please share with us what was going through your mind as all of this was happening. And let's just start with Joe first.
Thank you. When the gentleman asked me to call for help, I did, like I always do. But I asked what his problem was, and when he said chest pains, I knew that meant something pretty serious. So I called for help, and Hassan showed up, and Portland Fire showed up rather quickly, but at the moment, it felt like a very long time alone in a bus in the dark with a man having chest pains. All I could think of was, we need to do something to save this man. When the fire department asked us to transport him, Hassan was the voice of reason. I was the voice of, let's just get going. I was operating under the principle of it's better to ask forgiveness. And I now see I wouldn't have had to ask for forgiveness. And I'm very impressed and very proud to say TriMet has done the honorable thing of we do what we need to do when people need us, always. Every driver that I have met in TriMet, every supervisor, every manager, every dispatcher would have done at least as much, if not more than I did. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy doing his job.
Thank you. And Hassan, why don't you talk a little bit? What was on your mind when that took place?
Well, normally I'm a camera shy guy. You're putting me on the spot. Yeah, as a road supervisor, we respond all kind of calls, TriMet related, not TriMet related. And the moment I showed up, I knew this was different. You know, I showed up, the guy was already hooked up with, you know, all kind of monitoring. But without the help of Joe, I mean, Joe could have just said, no, I'm done, I'm just going home, you know. But without Joe, that guy would have been, maybe we saved his life, you know. But we are truly, when we say TriMet serve the community, we are really serving this community. And I want to also thank the management who approved. You know, I called in over the radio saying, this is what's going on. Portland Fire Rescue is asking us this. Can we do this? So I was put on hold. They worked on the background. They come back to me. I'm thankful for your approval. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you on that. Chia, what was going on in your mind when you received the call and the request?
It was mainly the safety of both Joe and Hassan. The fact that they both were willing to help this person and they conveyed the urgency, we had no other choice. This is what we're here for. We're helping build the community, support the community, and even hopefully save the community. And Hassan said very great words, and I very much agree with him. And I just wanted to make sure that our operator was safe, and I just ensured that the firemen were gonna ride with them because they have even higher levels sometimes of certifications for emergency response. So their safety was paramount, and the safety of the passenger as well. So we worked as a great team, and Hassan actually stayed much later than he should have. He stayed, and he was willing just to help this person. So I just wanted to make sure that was known too. Like it was great teamwork.
Absolutely, bravo. Joe, I just want to ask you one question before I turn it over to the board for their sentiments. I know, talking with you told a story about how you've transported your father in these situations. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and how it affected you as you were going through this process?
Didn't mean to push the wrong button at the wrong time. Yeah, in my past, I have transported my father on a couple of occasions to the same hospital for the same problem. His heart was failing. And that went through my mind as I drove this man there. A million things went through my mind, including, I know what the hospital's like. How am I getting this bus out? But that wasn't really the priority. And I have to say, Hassan is very humble. He says he's doesn't want to be the star and isn't the camera guy. But the last words he said to me that night before I started back to the garage with the bus will remain with me forever. We did something great tonight.
Thank you so much on that. President Gonzalez, I'll turn this over for sentiments from the board.
I see some hands raised, but I just gotta say, next time you have a manager report like this, you really gotta bring some, you gotta leave some Kleenex up on this end of the table too. I see the Kleenex getting passed around outside.
We gotta come over.
Please, Director Edwards.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for all you do.
Can I say
Thanks.
one more thought?
Yeah, I got some. You know, for a lot of folks, you know, TriMet is as a logo, and it's a government agency. But today you've shown there's a heart and a soul behind that logo, and there's humanity behind that logo. There's dedication to rising up to the challenges behind that logo. You're giving it life, and you're proving to yourselves, to one another, and to the public at large that, you know, when it's time to show up, you do it, and you do it for your own reasons, not because the logo's asking you to do it. So, thank you. What more is there to say? And thank you for showing up as well. You were in the trenches and all of that. From the top to the bottom to the top. Well done, good stuff. Yes, Joe.
Can I say thank you to you and to the management for letting us do this, and for supporting the fact that we tried to do what was right.
Any other board members? I've got Kleenex here in case you need some. Yes, please. Director Lewis.
Words. Just I wanted to put eyes on all three of you. I saw Joe on TV. I had just returned from 18 hours of flying into the country from a country that had no bus service hardly. And so it was laying there and watching the news, and they were talking about TriMet. I thought, oh, okay, now. It was like, okay. And then they shared the story of the man who had was having breathing problems. And then the decision to carry the bus. Now, I can imagine the thought of, okay, I got to carry this bus, keep the pace. Hopefully there was, a chase car in front of you to stop traffic so you could was there? Okay, good. I mean, I ran this scenario. Okay, chase car, get the bus there, fire engine's gonna follow, they're on the bus. But I didn't know about Hassan and the supervisor who made the decision to say yes. Now, I want to know in my heart that if you had said no, Joe, you would have still done. Yeah, right. All right, okay, that is all. And then just laying there thinking, because I was exhausted of, okay, I know I have to let the general manager have you here so that we can thank you personally. 11 o'clock news comes on, and there you are, sharing your story. And it was kind of that halo over our logo, and it was like, wow. And it was like, this is what we want TriMet to be, and to represent the agency that we do our best in all circumstances. I it was kind of like I was thinking of Andrew and safety and security, and it was like, Yes. Thank you for what you did. Thank you, Hassan. Yes, no, but you're all heroes. And thank you, Zoe. No,
Gia.
Gia. Thank you. Get the names right. Thank you.
Director Frisbee.
This all, there's a clear theme to the general manager's report. And I just also want to say thank you. We all say thank you. But I want to take a moment and also acknowledge this singular act of heroism in a moment of the small acts of heroism that you may not even notice as a day-to-day driver. And it's usually not as dramatic as taking someone to the hospital in a bus, but every day you're carrying someone to a job interview or helping a parent get a sick kid to the doctor, or helping them visit a friend who needs attention, or just getting them to their job every day. And I am grateful that that does not every day require this acute moment. But I hope you know, in addition to this one big act, your every day as a driver helps people's lives in immeasurable ways. And so, deeply grateful to you and the whole team for this one moment, but mostly deeply grateful for what you do every day.
All right. Any other board members before we conclude the general manager's report and move on to board business? Yes.
So before we move on, I would like the board to take a photo with our transportation employees and our heroes. I call you hero. I know you're not, Joe, in your mind. And before we do that, let's give them one more big round of applause.
And I'll quickly say then, what I'd like to do is propose, we're going to take a 10-minute break between this and the next to gather ourselves. We'll take the photo, and we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll return with the general board business. Oh, thank you. Yes. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. I failed to mention. Continue with the board meeting. So I would like to officially reconvene the TriMet board business meeting at this time. And before we move to the next agenda item, I want to just take the opportunity to acknowledge and to give my fellow board members an opportunity to acknowledge the broad heroism that has existed in the last week. We didn't get the full opportunity to do so, and I think the best way to do this, and I know it's the agency-wide, but I want to have our managers and operators please take a moment to stand up. If you're still in the room, all of our directors and operators, I know that some of them are off already doing their busyness. Yes, thank you. I saw it in the round-the-clock alerts and updates I was getting on my phone, but I cannot imagine, how much adjusting and flexing you had to do in that time. To you, to your households that had to absorb all of that as well, thank you. And I echo Director Frisbee's sentiment. I really hope you've had a chance or will have soon a chance to get some sleep. Anybody else on the board wish to say something? Yes, Director Edwards.
I guess I would like to say thank you to all of you TriMet employees who are in the room, because it's a team effort. Even though you may not be out in the field, there are things that you do that make it all work. When you're putting something together, someone puts a nut in, someone puts a bolt on, someone puts a washer on, someone is out there talking to folks out in the field, someone drives the buses, someone directs traffic, someone is an ambassador. All of you are part of the team, and I hope you understand and know that we appreciate each and every one of you. So I would like all of you to please stand up.
Once again, there you go. Any other board members wish to share words? Okay. Well, I think I can sincerely say with confidence that that sentiment is echoed throughout the board, and in all regions this was impacted, and you've served the constituents of all districts in the work that you have done. So once again, way to show up. Damn it. Okay. Now, on to some board business. I'd like to turn us to the consent agenda. Now, for those that may or may not recall, items that appear on the consent agenda are considered generally routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. And this morning, the consent agenda, it's still morning, yes, the consent agenda includes two items. Approving the minutes of our last board meeting from December 13th, as well as a resolution directing that the reading of all ordinances be by title only. Does any director wish to have any of the items removed from today's consent agenda?
Move to accept the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a second. Does this the motion is to keep the things in the consent agenda. Now we're going to go ahead and vote on the consent agenda. Yes, thank you. With that, all of those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please do so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, we've approved the consent agenda unanimously. All right. Now, we're going to move to the remaining resolutions on the regular agenda, pardon me. The next resolution to come before the board this morning is resolution number 24-01-01, authorizing a contract modification with Allied Universal Security Services to provide transit security services. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Gonzalez, members of the board, Providing security presence on our transit system is vital for TriMet, our employees, and our riders. We have consistently worked to grow that presence, and I'm happy to say that we now have 160 transit security officers dedicated to TriMet throughout our contract with Allied Universal. As you may recall, that's an increase in our unarmed security personnel from approximately 50 when the board authorized the contract with Allied in 2019. While the contract expires in April of this year, and we are already in the procurement process for our transit security services, a contract that you will consider in March, this resolution requests a modification necessary to get us through the remainder of the contract with our increased security staff intact. If approved, this resolution would increase by total contract authority by $6 million. The request amount is already included in our FY 2024 Safety and Security Division budget. We just need your approval to spend the money on maintaining our transit security staff. For diversity, more than half of Allied Universal's workforce represents a minority, and nearly 30% are female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 24-01-01?
I move to approve. Kim?
Thank you, Director Kim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Edwards. It has been moved and seconded. Now, does anyone wish to make a comment before we move to a vote? Yes, Director Edwards.
I have a question of the General Manager, and this may be for staff. When we look at the diversity of the company or whoever it is that we're getting ready to hire and give an additional contract to, do we look at their track record on their retention of their employees at all? And, you know, to see that they've had some consistency in their staff?
I'm going to answer yes, but where's Les? I want Les to come join as well with the procurement aspect of it.
And I guess in addition to that, what is their leadership of the company look like in regards to diversity as well?
Yeah. Les?
Good morning. Les Spittler, Director of Procurement, Supply Chain Management. Thanks for that question, Director Edwards. We ask for a matrix of their workforce statistics in their proposal, and also ask for their things like their EEO policy and their hiring and retention policies. And we do review those, and those are scored points. And so on a contract like this, retaining staff and being able to recruit qualified staff are paramount importance. And so we allocate certain number of points in the evaluation criteria to that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments raised by the board, I'd like to now move us to the vote. For all those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-01, please do so now by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, this morning, the board is going to reconsider, or pardon me, is going to consider resolution number 24-01-02, authorizing a contract with GIRO, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that acronym, for HASTAS employee scheduling software upgrades and annual maintenance fees. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Gonzalez and members of the board, this resolution would approve a contract modification that would allow us to modernize TriMet's scheduling system for operators. This would present a huge benefit to our operator hiring and retention efforts, and in turn, our efforts to roll out our Forward Together improvements and provide additional services to our riders and the community needs. Our schedule writing system is effective, but our current operator scheduling system is incredibly antiquated and relies on paper, pencil, memory, phone calls, and handwritten notes, and does not meet our needs for a modern operation. Not only is it a negative experience for our bus and rail operators, it leads to schedule uncertainty one of the key reasons why we have difficult recruiting and retaining new operators. We use a program called HASTUS to create transit timetables and work schedules for our operators. HASTUS is provided by Giroux, and a vendor who have been working with us successfully for almost 20 years. This resolution will allow Giroux to upgrade our HASTUS work scheduling software and modernize and streamline our operator work sign-up process. I've asked Senior Director of Planning, Alan Leto, to really come and explain and kind of show you a little bit on how this works, and also help TriMet to work better and smarter and help with the recruiting and retaining of operators. So Alan, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. As Sam said, our scheduling software, what our back of house experts are using, is pretty sophisticated. It's called HASTUS. It's from a company called Giroux, I think. It's a French name, French Canada. But they provide services to, they recently estimated 70% of the larger transit systems in the United States, Canada, and elsewhere as well. And this is just some screenshots of some of the great technology that they have within that system. Allows sophisticated analysis, allows us to schedule the entire bus and rail system, and allows us to kind of build things that make sense in terms of the technology. Our version is just a few years old, so it does need an upgrade to be the state of the art. But it's the rest of the system that's the real issue here. It's the operator experience. Up until just before the pandemic, operators were still lining up to be able to sign up for their shifts. On the second page here, just to kind of the overview, there are a lot of paper and pen processes. There are many channels for communication, sending emails to people back and forth, literal paper slips. The legacy software that handles some of the elements is so old that the person who wrote it at TriMet has retired and nobody else knows how to fix it comprehensively. When we patch any software that it connects to, it tends to crash, and so our manager needs to be on site at 1 a.m. when they do the patches to make sure that they can put it back together in time for the next morning. And it obviously impacts the operator experience. We have over 1,000 bus operators and more, and several hundred rail operators, and they're having this kind of paper and pen experience of, did you remember my request? Do you have it? All of that. Then the next slide gives you a sense of what the operator experience is. There are a number of signups. We change service 4 times a year. And so they sign up for the shifts that they're going to do, the runs that they're going to do during that time. But we also have special service on holidays. And we have different signups for when we do construction like we are now. We have rail operators and bus operators sign up for special duties. So again and again throughout the year, they're asked to do this process. And my staff and some of the others are literally busy a week at a time or more during these signups, just taking the requests in. An individual operator, the experience would be of, you get a 1 to maybe 4 minute window to choose which things you want, and you better have sent in an email or literally filled out on a piece of paper what you want and the different options that you want, so you can put it in time to get assigned. The software that we're talking about upgrading to would take care of all of that. So everything would be automated, everything would be connected, the errors in transcription and assignments would be gone. The other thing that is a big issue, as Sam mentioned, for recruitment and retention is the experience of our newest operators. Many of them end up on what's called the extra board, which is the group of operators who are ready to fill in when an operator is sick or when they're on vacation or some other issue comes up. When you are on the extra board, we do have a piece of software that helps us do that, but that's the one written by the person who has retired. And it cannot distinguish between AM and PM, it just has to go by seniority. And so an operator could, who is on the extra board, could have to report to work at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning and work until noon or 1. And then the next day have to, after a suitable rest period, have to show up the next day at 4 p.m. and work past midnight. There is no guarantee that they have any real kind of regularity to their work. And so doing what we call an AM/PM extra board would help solve that, so that you generally are assigned to things that are in the morning, or generally are assigned to things that are in the later day, and you can do that by seniority and meet all the expectations of the working and wage agreement. The new system will allow us to do that in an automated way, and we'll also have opportunities for other abilities. Right now, in addition to what I've talked about, if you are an operator and you want to take an individual day off, you go into your yard or bus garage and you pick up the red book, which is sitting on the desk, and you open it to the correct day. And if there aren't too many people filled in already, then you put on your name on here and say what your request is. This is if you want to take a day off, or if you want to work on your regular day off because you want to do a little extra work. This is if you want to trade shifts or do anything else unusual with that. These are managed by the station agents, literal pen and paper. They have to mark it off each day. You know, you can't put a stamp on here. You can't put your name below this. I've closed it off. I'm going to work on this tomorrow. All of this is a manual process. You can imagine the kinds of things that happen when we accidentally got the employee number wrong and reassign it to somebody who doesn't even know that they're supposed to be working. All of those things will go away. The experience of the operator will be a simple electronic interaction where they can put in their requests, they can put in what they're interested in, they get often pretty quick or immediate feedback, and they know that the right information has gone in. So the proposal is to be able to do that update. You can see on the screen here is an example out of this larger book. There are cryptic acronyms, even for me. I had to ask the manager recently to remind me what some of these things mean. The last page there in the presentation just gives a sense of these new functions that we'll be able to do once we have the upgrade of those web-based interactive signups, the AM/PM extra board, the vacation needs, the ability to trade shifts. Right now, you have to go and talk to your fellow operators and find somebody to be able to trade shifts with, and only once you've confirmed that can you write them down in the book, and you have to write it in both dates, and if you don't get it right in both dates, the station agent has to reject it because otherwise the shift isn't covered. All of that will be hit within the system. And then if there are other things we are trying to do to make the experience of our operators more comfortable and more predictable, then this should have the technology to do that because they're doing that in, like I said, 70% of the systems across the country. That's all I wanted to share, and happy to answer any questions.
Just hold on for one sec, Alan. President Gonzalez and board members, this resolution presents one solution, an important and necessary solution utilizing technology as stated, which TriMet is already familiar with. The proposed modification for $4.5 million will add 5 years to the term of the contract with the money spent over time as needed, and will also cover the software installation and the setup. So I would also note that if TriMet were to engage with a new scheduling and workforce management solution provider, we would be looking at a massive effort to make that transition, both in staff time and in costs. I can tell you Giroux is a best-in-class software provider, and their solution is used by many transit agencies, not just in the United States, but throughout the world there. So the project is part of the TriMet's capital improvement program, and we anticipate funding support from our State Transportation Improvement Fund, or STIF. Taking a look at diversity, Giroux's staff is about 13.5% minority and more than 30% female. So I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Now, there will be, as a point of order, I'd like to see if there's a motion before we get into discussions and questions.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Do we have a second?
Second.
This year was a little faster than the other. I'm going to go with Director Way for the second. Thank you. And now, please, Board, questions and comments. Director Lewis, I'd like to begin with you.
Just a quick question. What's the life of the software? I mean, meaning 12 years from now, we will need to update? And then is there any AI interface with this going forward?
So two questions. The life of the software, what we are doing is getting into their sort of upgrade-ready system, which means that it will be generally up to date throughout. There are annual license fees. Those are already included in the resolution, but that will keep us from falling behind so that we're able to take advantage of the state-of-the-art, whatever's being developed. The AI, we just got a software demonstration the other day. I don't know that there's, other than in the back end, sort of the analysis, a lot of sophistication to that. I don't know that there's an AI interface yet, but being upgrade ready would mean that if and when they do develop that, we would be able to take advantage of it.
And Dr. Lewis, as I understand, this is a 5-year, this contract modification is 5-year extension, so that once the 5 years up, we would have to either renew or look out into the market. So I think to answer your question, we're looking at the next 5 years for this software.
Thank you. Director Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, General Manager and staff. I think this is really innovative because it's going to save money in the long run, and it's going to be very efficient as well. Typically, there's an issue with collective bargaining units because there's a trust or a lack of trust issue that exists between management and labor. But because of the relationship that's been built, again, Mr. General Manager, that does not exist here, and this is going to be really earth-shattering, I think, going forward. So thank you all very much.
Yes, Director Kellogg?
Thank you. What's the plan to educate and train the operators on how to use the system?
Right, that will be a very important part of the component of it, and we're looking at doing that obviously as we get to the point where we're getting close to being able to turn those on. But we'll be having some operators involved in the setup of the system so that we're not forgetting that usability. And the Giro does their own implementation. They come in and help us with that implementation, and they have a lot of experience across the country in how to do training and how to make sure our operators are fully aware of how to do that. So we're going to be leaning on that understanding while making sure that our own staff are well trained enough so that we have all the expertise within house to be able to make sure people understand how to use it.
Okay, and those training efforts are included in the cost?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to say also, as I've been through this process twice over my 30 years, they have a training arm that will come in and help us set up to be able to train all of our employees on that.
Thank you for that. Seeing no other board members, I'd like to just simply add that it sounds to me like this is going to help the user experience on both sides, for the operators as well as for the staff that's managing that process. So it all bodes very well in the right direction, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to remind the public out there that we're still hiring. We are looking for operators, and it sounds like the experience is about to get better. If you've been on the fence or want to come back, we are looking to expand service and increase ridership service capacity throughout the region. So give us a call. With that, I'd like to move us to the vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-02, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, this motion has been approved unanimously. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Next, This morning, this board is going to consider resolution number 24-01-03, authorizing a contract with AB Corporation for the HOP Fast Pass Extended Use Contactless Media. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments?
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. If approved, the next resolution to come before you today will help expand our HOP Fast Pass to more users. It'll lead to added security system and performance. And it's going to really help TriMet and our partners meet the regional demand for HOP cards over the next 5 years. So Sophia Franklin, our Director of Fair Revenue and Administrative Services, she's here to provide some additional detail on the benefits to the agency, our partners, and our riders. So Sophia, I'll turn it over.
Hi. So this contract is for a new manufacturer to manufacture our HOP cards. So I wanted to do a quick recap of how we distribute HOP cards today, and then talk about this new contract. So our current contract expires this May. In 2021, we received notice from one of the suppliers for this contract that they would be discontinuing the technology in our HOP cards. So we use what's called an EV1 MyFair Desfire chip, and that is 2 generations old. They've since issued an EV3 version. So the new contract will be using a new, more secure microchip in HOP cards. Under our current contract, we manufacture 18 variations of fair media. So to most writers, that might look really simple. We just have 3 fair categories and 3 HOP cards on the street. But there's a lot of nuances to the different types of fair media we manufacture. So Lyft Paratransit actually has a different card. Personalized Honored Citizens has a different card. The cards we distribute through the retail network are packaged in special packaging. They have different manufacturing requirements. We sell HOP cards through the retail network, through the Customer Support Center at Pioneer Courthouse Square, and then we distribute a lot of cards for free through different partnerships, community-based organizations, and special events. Under this new contract, if you could go to the next slide, our project goals include continuing of operations. So the existing HOP cards in the system will be accepted indefinitely, but we will be introducing new HOP cards. We're upgrading the chip technology, like I touched on. We also will put in a very large order to stock ticket vending machines, which we plan to roll out in 2025. So each machine will need 1,000 HOP cards for the initial rollout. We've also positioned contract terms to keep a minimum of 400,000 chips in the warehouse with our name on them. So through the pandemic, we went from an 8-week turnaround time to procure chips to a 52-week turnaround time because we were up against competition from the world for microchips. And we never ran out of HOP cards. That took a lot of finagling to do. But this will just protect us in the future if there's ever another event like we went through in 2020. And then the contract also improves options for cards with unique graphics. I wanted to anticipate some questions that the board might have on this contract because we recommend going with AB Core, and their pricing is higher than Paragon ID. That comes down to their unique price per card. So a full fare card from AB Core is $1.66, and Paragon ID, it's $1.43. That's a 23-cent difference. So why do we think it's worth paying 23 cents more for AB Core's cards? To begin with, AB Core had no exceptions with our contract requirements, and Paragon ID listed 9 exceptions that were significantly concerning. The first was around pricing and acceptable annual increases for cards. So we benchmark our allowable increases against the Consumer Price Index, specifically for technology. Paragon ID asked for an exception where they could end the contract if they didn't agree in a given year with that price increase. So when we were forecasting out cards and the necessary dollar value we would need to assign with this contract, with AB Corps, we can be certain of that dollar value because they've agreed to our price increasing terms. With Paragon ID, they would want to negotiate a price increase every year, so we wouldn't know what that price increase would look like from year to year. On the manufacturing turnaround times, AB Corps agreed to our 8-week requirement. Paragon ID requested a 10 to 12-week requirement, and this is mainly because the majority of their manufacturing is in Eastern Europe and Asia, so they needed to add time for shipping, which, if you're following the news, adds concern to actually getting cards delivered on time. AB Corps also met our requirement for an allowable defect rate. So we will allow for 0.1% of cards to be defect before we refuse a shipment. So that's 1 in 1,000 hop cards. Paragon ID asked for a 2% defect rate, which means that 2 out of every 100 hop cards could potentially not work for our customers. AB Corps has a proven supply chain. They worked closely with us through the pandemic to make sure that we could get all the necessary components to manufacture cards. That's an unknown for Paragon ID. AB Corps had a reference customer for the EV3 technology. So the Orca card in Seattle uses that same technology for their Orca cards, and Paragon ID did not have a reference customer. And then simplified onboarding processes and timelines. Just because we already have established runs with AB Corps, we're just changing the chip technology for those runs. And we would have to stand up a full manufacturing line with Paragon ID. So with that, I'm hopeful I can answer any questions you have around hop cards and why we recommend going with AB Corps for this solicitation.
So thank you, Sophia. I really appreciate that. And if you could just hold for a moment, I want to give the board just a couple of updates here. So the contract would be authorized for just over $8 million. It will include a 15% contingency over a 5-year term with an option to extend up to 3 additional years. The amount is included in the Finance and Administrative Services operating budget for FY24. On our diversity, AB Corp's workforce is 56% minority and 44% female, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Before we get into comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve Resolution 24-01-03? Thank you, Director Kim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Edwards. We've been moved and seconded. Now, are there any comments or questions from the board on this resolution? Yes, Director Wade.
Thank you. I really like this presentation. It's really, pretty easy to follow, so I appreciate the comparison. I just want to ask again just how this particular new vendor, how this will interact with the current customers' experience. I'm just worried about potential confusion between current hop cards that they have, new ones. I think you clarified that, but if we can be very specific about what the customers or, the user experience could change or not change from this would be helpful.
Hopefully, the majority of our customers will not notice a difference. If anything, what this will allow for is more variety of hop cards for more programs, as well as more special limited edition cards. So we might be seeing more unique printing of graphics on cards. But in terms of the actual hop card, unless you're really honed in on TriMet and what we're doing, you shouldn't know the difference between what we have today and what this will offer.
Thank you. And then can you emphasize what would be the start date again for, businesses, new vendors getting these new cards? What is the start date for that?
Yeah, so if the contract is awarded, say, early next month, we will have about a 6-month onboarding period to get the manufacturer to run a trial run of each of our 18 variations, which we would test in-house before introducing in the market. We have, about 1 year's worth of cards in inventory today, so that gives us plenty of time to slowly transition from our existing stock to the new cards.
Okay, thank you. And I just hope we obviously can continue to be transparent, communicate all this information with our Writers Club, just so that there isn't like any confusion, because again, if there's a change in design to the hop card, or just people are just noticing, oh, there's a slight difference between the card I've been carrying for the last couple years and these new ones. I would want our team to do the best, of course, to help answer any questions and any confusion out there.
Thank you for those comments and questions, Director Wade. Director Lewis?
Thank you for the presentation. Going forward, I would be interested as a board member to hear how you're marketing the ability to design, like first edition cards, what you're printing on them. Will it represent any of the culture of our community? Because this is something they're going to have in hand. And so just once you launch, if you have a planned, presentation of what's coming on the cards, I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to market all kinds of things, and I'd be interested in knowing.
Agreed.
One last piece.
Please.
Especially safety and security and a number to call.
Good point.
Yep.
Good point, Director Lewis. I'll lean into that. I have a couple of questions. First one, I'd like to revisit the idea of graphics in a second, but before that, you touched upon the difference in the vendors in there, and you mentioned the vendor that you weren't recommending having their manufacturing overseas. Where's the manufacturing for AB Corp located?
AB Corp, the primary location is outside of Boston, but they also manufacture in Canada. And I should say Paragon ID does have a plant in the Carolinas as well, but the majority of their manufacturing was overseas.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. And regarding hardware, will this transition require any upgrade to those modules that we have to tap? Is there going to be a hardware upgrade requirement on the heels of this? And if so, is it included in this package?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We have received sample EV3 cards from the manufacturer, and we have tested them across the system. So there will not need to be an upgrade to our validators on platforms or buses. The one area where we will need to upgrade the technology is at the point of sale device at the customer support center. It has a unique card reader, and there is already a contractor that is working on that specific need. It's not looped into the financing for this contract, but it is being funded out of our operating budget.
And it sounds like that work is underway regardless.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Now, shifting back to the user experience for a second, how agile is this upgrade to the graphic side of things? Like, I've seen credit cards where I could have a photo of my dog on it if I wanted to, an upgrade. Are we to that granularity? No, okay. Shucks. Hopefully an upgrade at some point. I think that's cool, and I do. So it sounds like we're going to be able to issue editions of cards with different graphics.
And thanks for pulling up this. We do issue editions today. So there was an FX card. There was the Purple Rain card. We have a Timberwolves card. But the process for the team to do this is very difficult. So we do maybe one special edition card per year. This will give more flexibility to that process, and I'll lean on public affairs to help kind of manage that. I think it'll still be fairly structured with a limited number of releases, but it's not the floodgates opening for card graphics.
Well, to the vendor out there, should this move forward, put that in your back pocket as a potential, because credit cards are doing it, and it's pretty cool. Now another thing, you mentioned that the old cards will still work. And I heard that in addition to the cool graphics upgrade potential, there's some security upgrades. For myself as a user, what benefits would I gain if I were to sunset my old card and try to get a new card? From a security perspective, is there a difference on that side?
From the security perspective is really for us, TriMet. So we never want fraudulent hop cards in the market. And if you go back to the old days of fare collection, people used to try to fraudulate cards and sell them on secondary markets like Craigslist, like Facebook Marketplace. That is something that we monitor very closely. And so by having a more secure chip and technology in the cards, it makes that even more difficult to do.
Thank you. I had no idea. Little did I know about that. And I think that covers my questions. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other hands raised from the board, I'd like to now move us to the vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-03, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries. I haven't been using my gavel enough today. Thank you so much for the presentation. It all bodes well. It sounds like we're firing on many cylinders for improving day-to-day operations in the system. Wow. Good day. At this time, I'm going to take a pause to the regular business meeting so that we can convene as a board, as the TriMet Contract Review Board, to consider the next 4 resolutions. Fellow board members, as you may recall, we were warned that we were going to be looking at new ways to procure, and we're about to hear of some resolutions that are proposing some new ways to procure and why. So Oregon public contracting law and our TCRB rules allow the board, in its role as the TCRB, to exempt a contract procurement from the low bid process so that the agency can consider other factors, in addition to price, in awarding contracts. The TriMet Contract Review Board is now going to consider such 4 resolutions, beginning with Resolution 24-01-04, requesting the TCRB to authorize an exemption from the low bid requirements to allow a best value solicitation for a public improvement contract for the Columbia Bus Base Preparation Project. Mr. General Manager, please, your comments.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, TriMet's Columbia Bus Operation Facility will be developed to support, maintain, and store up to 252 buses that are anticipated to become part of TriMet's zero-emissions bus fleet. TriMet acquired the property on Northeast Columbia between 42nd and 46th Avenues back in 2019 to help get construction moving as quickly as possible while making the best use of federal funding and local grants. TriMet is dividing the development of the project into smaller elements. The scope for this project, this part of the project, includes site preparation, demolition of 12 buildings, excavation, utility decommissioning, waste removal, and recycling. TriMet staff would like to conduct a competitive best value RFP to obtain a contractor for these services. We must receive authorization from you as the TriMet Contract Review Board to do so. A best valued procurement will allow TriMet to consider other factors, including aspects such as experience, cost control, safety, small business utilization, and COVID certification, as well as price when awarding the contract. The cost of the work is included in the FY 24-25 engineering and construction and planning budget, and your approval is recommended.
Thank you very much, General Manager Dessou. Before we go into comments and questions, I'd like to see if there is a motion to approve Resolution 24-01-04.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Do we have a second?
Second, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Or ask a question? Yes, Director Kellogg.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're the right person to answer this, but you listed out those factors to be considered. Are they all given equal weight, or is there some sort of other formula that weights them differently?
So I'm going to bring Kate McKinnon up. Also, Adam as well, Adam Sutherland.
Thank you for your question. Can you repeat the question, actually?
So Sam listed, sorry, General Manager Sue, listed several factors: experience, cost control, value engineering, all these. My question was, are those items weighted evenly in the analysis of the award of the contract, or are the different factors given different weights, and if so, what?
That's a great question. So Kate McKinnon-Kaiser, I'm the team manager for the buildings project delivery team. With me is Adam Sutherland. He will be the project manager for the scope of the work. Just a key note, we do have an operating facility on base already. So really safety and coordination with our agency is kind of number one value. Adam, do you want to touch on some of the hazardous materials and
Sure. This being part of our zero emission bus campus, we thought material reuse, recycling would make a lot of sense to include in the RFP. But to answer your question, we're playing around with the RFP right now, and it looks like cost would probably be about half of the value of that RFP, somewhere in there. With recycling, co-bid participation, safety, all that being approximately the other half of the value.
Okay, so one half is cost and the other half is the other 8 factors. Are those other 8 factors all given equal weight, or are some given more weight than the others?
Some are currently being assigned more weight than the others.
Okay, and do you have more specific information on what those are?
Recycling, reuse is a pretty high value. Co-bid and everything else is on the smaller side, but pretty much all the same from there.
Okay.
We're developing the RFP right now, as you can see.
And I know we've got
Yeah.
3 more of these after this, so I'm going to have the same question.
Right.
Is there a uniform sort of way to weigh things, or is it going to be for each different RFP? You're going to say, okay, this is 42%, this is so on and so forth.
So this for this particular solicitation, we will be looking at best value for the agency, which is lowering that carbon footprint for the site, as well as safety, coordination for ongoing operations, and then of course cost certainty. So.
Okay, well, I would ask, just so we don't have to do this every time, if in the memos on future proposals that we can get some idea of what the breakdown of the factors are, that'll help us, I think, analyze each RFP. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Director Kellogg, and I'll lean into that topic a little bit more as well. I think part of what will help us gain clarity is if there is a unique process for each RFP to determine the priorities of this best value criteria, it would be good to know what that process is and where that resides in the procurement process, if it's the team always, or is there some standard approach and a standard group that assesses that valuation. It doesn't sound like we have the same weighting percentages from one best value contract to the other.
Correct.
So it would be good for us to know how that process goes, and to the best degree possible, if you have clarity on what that weighting would be, if you have it. But having those factors, I think, is very helpful transparency for the market and for the board to understand that.
Points taken. We will definitely follow up with procurement and our engineering team.
And just to really emphasize it, for this particular one, is the group of individuals determining that weighting going to be the same as the individuals evaluating RFPs for an ultimate recommendation on selection?
So we'll identify a selection committee, which will include procurement, members from the procurement team, as well as our staff, as well as safety and our diversity, equity, and inclusion specialists as well, just to make sure we have a rounded representation of who's going to be working with those folks.
And is that same sort of body present when you're determining the weighting factors?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All this helps. Since we're venturing into new areas, it really helps to understand the process a little behind the curtain on that. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments coming from the board? All right. Seeing none, I'd like to move us now to vote on the resolution. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-04, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. We have a unanimous approval of Resolution 24-01-04. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We continue with the TCRB, and now we will going to consider Resolution 24-01-05, requesting the TCRB to authorize a class exemption from low bid requirements, once again, for on-call services for the installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of fencing. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
President Gonzalez and board members, across our 533 square mile service area, TriMet owns and operates many facilities and buildings, parking rides, and transit centers. As many of these facilities, which include some employee parking areas, need fencing for safety and security, And TriMet requires on-call services for installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of fencing. These on-call fencing jobs are generally smaller jobs or smaller projects than can be done by small businesses. TriMet staff would like the opportunity to conduct a best valued RFP process when awarding these on-call contracts. As mentioned earlier, using the best value process will allow TriMet to consider price as well as other factors like experience with similar work or safety, small businesses status, COVID certification when awarding these on-call contracts. TriMet expects the cost of these various projects to range between $5,000 and $300,000. Funding of the anticipated contracts is included in the FY 2024 operating budget for maintenance operations, and your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve 24-01-05 at this time?
So moved, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Edwards. We have been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make comments or raise questions before we go to a vote?
I'll just share a thought, not necessarily on this particular one, but on these 4 resolutions. I appreciate this in connection with my comment from, I believe, the last board meeting. I am a big fan of us identifying items that we can move from an ITB to a BVA so that we can really carve out those items that can encourage those startup businesses that are oftentimes owned by COVID certified vendors. So I know this is an extra hoops that we have to go through as the board and of course as the staff, but I do appreciate the time that we take so that we can really encourage these vendors and partner with these vendors starting now with longevity in mind. So just appreciation, and of course I do think at times, oftentimes it can absolutely, it doesn't always have to be the lowest value, but we should always, in general, as we can afford, time-wise, energy-wise, as a team, look at the best value as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for that comment, Director Kim. Director Kellogg?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm sort of catching up here. As you know, I missed the December board meeting and some of this content, but do we have a plan in place to do kind of a post hoc analysis of what we've done with these contracts in terms of, versus the low bid and I know that some of the benefits are intangible, but at least having a general analysis of understanding that what system we're trying to put in place here is actually doing the good that we intend for it to do. And I know that's a much broader question than you're probably prepared to answer. But
Yeah, I'm going to bring Les. Why don't you come up and see if you can answer this question for the board?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the question. It's a great one. There is a statutory requirement for each project that we exempt from the low bid to come back to our local contract review board, in this case the TriMet Contract Review Board, to do a post-project evaluation. Typically those get submitted to the board via the monthly delegated authority report. And so there is there's findings that need to be completed that talks about whether or not the best value approach truly delivered the result that we had intended via these findings, and when we ask your permission to exempt a project from the low bid. So we can provide copies of those to you, or we can present them in a different way than the monthly delegated authority report. In most cases, we do find that there's more collaboration between the designer and the contractor. There's more opportunities for value engineering. There's less change orders. There's higher co-bid firm participation, because as the contractor works with the owner and the designer to advance design, they can be proactive about contracting out for those scopes of work and packages that they're not going to self-perform, that they're going to have to hire subcontractors for. And that advance notice is really effective in those general contractors being able to engage and hire those subcontractors that we want participation from, and in most cases they're co-bid certified firms. So there's a lot of benefits, and each project has its own specific benefits, but those are memorialized in that post-project evaluation form.
great, and I think it's a matter of oversight. It'd be great for us to see those, and maybe from a 30,000-foot view, but at least to be able to track that.
And while we have Wes up there, would you kindly, just a quick comment on, for our and the public's awareness, comment on how this exercise of class exceptions ties in with the findings from the recent disparity study, and also whether this is consistent with the recommendation of that study?
Sure, yeah. As you may know, the state recently commissioned a disparity study for state agencies. The consultant firm that conducted the study found that there is, in fact, a disparity with the saturation of co-bid firms relative to the utilization by state agencies. And so the consultant firm had a list of recommendations for the state agencies to increase their utilization and participation by co-bid firms. One of them was a small business set-aside, which essentially is not what we're doing with these exemptions. These are low bid exemptions, but when we ask the board to limit the pool of competition to co-bid certified firms only, like we did recently for the on-call building in December and the bus shelter repair and maintenance contract, that is a small business set-aside where we're allowing competition amongst all of the certifications. So there's disadvantaged business enterprise, there's minority-owned business enterprise, women-owned, emerging small business, and service-disabled veteran, soon-to-be just veteran-owned business enterprise. They're removing the service-abled designation. And so that essentially is a small business set-aside where you're guaranteeing that one of those certified firms is going to get that business, thereby still maintaining race and gender neutrality, but also taking a portion of work and only competing it amongst those firms that are certified by the state. And that was one recommendation. So that's something that, as you've seen, we do as often as possible when it's realistic that there's a high enough saturation of firms that can perform the work where we know we're going to get competition. That's a barrier that we remove, as well as supporting them throughout the term of the contract to make sure that they have a good experience and that they're truly growing their capacity and successful in their work with TriMet.
Any others? I see no others, so I'm gonna add a few thoughts on the matter, and Les, thank you for staying up there for a second. Not necessarily a question, because I know I've seen the team out in the community. I've seen the outreach to the business community about knowing about the opportunities within TriMet, And I want to acknowledge that that work is alive and well, and I see the presence of TriMet in that community forum with the business sector growing. And I think that that's a testament to the work that's sort of behind the curtain of these TCRB approvals. None of that would be successful without that outreach. And I want to acknowledge that TriMet is, in doing this work, there's a why it's happening, and so much of this is growing the pipeline of our supply chain in our own communities with new vendors. And so to that end, I'd say in conjunction with my fellow board members that are raising some great issues and questions around this, I would love to see in those post hoc evaluations, not just percent COVID participation, for example, but I think the other element that's important to note here is how many new firms are coming in to do business with TriMet for the first time, as well as what, to the greatest extent possible, if we can start learning how these contracts with existing and new firms are creating growth in those firms, because we're having to do business with new entities as we go out to the community, and those new entities are having to staff up sometimes because they're entering into larger contracts perhaps than they've had in the past. I certainly know that's been true with some of our DBE and COVID firm participation to date. And being able to look back on, what has the impact been with Advanced Tribal, with Raymore Construction, and many of the others that we are now doing direct business with. Because I think those are some of the tales that help us close the loop on what the community benefit impact is to some of this, cryptic exemption of procurement law or procurement regulation. So when that time comes, and I look forward to these post-evaluations, if you could please help us also understand how many new vendors are we having out there and what impact is it having on our supply chain. That's going to be really valuable information, and it also forces us to maintain a relationship with our vendor community to see how doing business with TriMet really is going for them. My anticipation is that we're helping create jobs, we're helping find new vendors, and those vendors' experience with TriMet as a customer are positive. It's not easy to do business with government. It's not easy to go through that pipeline of submitting RFPs with an agency and get through that selection committee. And I want to make sure that we're looking at ourselves as how we behave as a client. And I think those elements are going to be instrumental in the process. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? And again, thanks to the board for having such a great lens on sort of why we're doing this stuff. So with that, I'd like to now move us to a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-05, please do so now by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining just because I missed what sounded like a spirited board discussion.
Welcome back, Director Frisbee. We have one abstention. And with that, the vote is not unanimous, but we have approved the resolution 24-01-05. Thank you very much. All right, and we continue in the capacity of TCRB. So we are now going to look at Resolution 24-01-06, requesting the TCRB to authorize an exemption from low bid requirements for a contract for construction manager general contractor known as CMGC services for the track rehabilitation program. Mr. General Manager Dessou, please, your comments.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, in the coming months, TriMet will identify a construction manager general contractor for our ongoing track rehabilitation program. The current CMGC contract, which was awarded to Stacy and Whitback in 2017, will expire in June of 2024. TriMet must issue a new GMGC services contract to continue our rollout and implementation of this successful and extensive maintenance of way work, what we often refer to as max improvement projects. The work takes place along a restrictive and active light rail alignment that requires careful attention to public safety and extensive coordination with ongoing transit operations. The work requires extreme care and experience, and a well-qualified CMGC service contractor is essential for success. Once again, TriMet wished to conduct a competitive best value RFP for the procurement for the variety of beneficial reasons previously mentioned. The ongoing cost of the trike rehabilitation program are included in the FY 2024 and future operating budgets for engineering, construction, and planning, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Does anyone wish to make a motion? We need to move on Resolution 24-01-06.
So move.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make comments or ask questions before we go to a vote? All right. Well, I think some of the questions that you have seen presented in the previous resolutions regarding these TCRB business, I think pertain in this one as well. So I'll carry those over into this one for the formal record. And seeing no other comments or questions, I'd like to now move us to a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 24-01-06, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Onward and upward. Next, TCRB will consider, I keep saying for some reason, will consider Resolution number 24-01-07, requesting the TCRB to authorize an exemption from low bid requirements to procure construction manager general contractor CMGC services for the Pioneer Courthouse Square Type 1 traction power substation replacement project. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, this final resolution seeks approval to conduct a competitive best valued RFP to obtain a CMGC contractor for the replacement of the traction power substation, or better known as TPSS, located in Pioneer Courthouse Square. It's one of 12 such substations along the MAX Blue Line installed in 1980s that have reached the end of their useful lives and must be upgraded or replaced. These services will include management of various phases of work on a tight schedule to avoid disruption to the adjacent Pioneer Courthouse facility and minimize disruptions to the public and to our transit service. The ongoing cost of the Pioneer Courthouse Square TPSS replacement projects are included in engineering, construction, and planning capital improvement plan forecasts. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 24-01-07?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, that was a tough one. All right, Director Frisbee. Welcome back, Director Frisbee. Thanks. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment or raise questions before we move to a vote? All right, seeing none. I'd like to now move us to a vote. Let's see here. For all of those wishing to approve Resolution 24-01-07, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I will now adjourn the TCRB, and we will reconvene the TriMet Board of Directors general business meeting for the balance of this session today. So now, those are the resolutions for today. Next, we will have the second reading and the roll call vote on ordinance number 376. Ordinance number 376 is TriMet's annual housekeeping ordinance, to remind the board. and it's required to reconnect the TriMet's, to reconnect TriMet's definition of net earnings from self-employment in Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code with the definition of the federal tax code. Earlier today, the board passed the resolution to read all ordinances by title only. So now I will ask General Counsel Shelley Devine to read Ordinance 376 by title only.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Ordinance number 376 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. This is the second reading.
Thank you, General Counsel Shelley Devine. Now, before we proceed with ordinance number 376, I'd like to open it up for the General Manager. Do you have any comments about the ordinance?
I do. Thank you, President Gonzalez, members of the board. Each year, TriMet obtains a tax opinion from our outside tax attorneys to make sure no changes in the federal tax code have occurred that could affect TriMet's self-employment tax. As in past years, our tax attorney believed it was prudent to update TriMet Code Chapter 14 to reconnect the current federal tax code. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Does the board have any questions or comments on this ordinance before we vote? And point of order, I'll remind the board this is a roll call vote. So now we will hold a roll call vote on ordinance number 376. So General Counsel Devine, would you please proceed with the roll call vote?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. I'll start with Director Kim.
Aye.
Director Kellogg.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Aye.
Director Way.
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Aye.
Director Frisbee.
Aye.
Director Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ordinance number 376 passes unanimously.
Thank you very much for leading us through that, General Counsel. This thus concludes our formal business for today. Before we take off, and boy, what a meeting. I don't know about the rest of you. It felt dense. I feel like we've had a whole lot of lived emotional feels throughout this meeting today. But before we take off, but wait, there's more. Director Edwards, you indicated that there was some news you wish to share with your fellow board members today. Could you please take the floor and share this news?
I have submitted my resignation from the board effective February 5th. And I didn't do this lightly. I've enjoyed my time on the board, and I certainly enjoy working with each and every one of you. I've enjoyed working with staff as well. But it has come time for me to step down. However, I will not be leaving until the governor appoints my replacement. So I will be around for a little bit. But it's really been a tough decision. It's been very emotional for me. I certainly enjoy working with the pension committee as well, and I've certainly enjoyed working with Kat. That's been a real experience for me, being able to see things through a different lens. And I've really appreciated all of them, and I will continue to work with them up until that time. And again, I appreciate working with staff as well, and certainly with the board. Thank you all.
Well, wow. Thank you for directing, for bringing that information, Director Edwards. I'm not used to surprises in the board meeting like this, but you certainly leave some big shoes to fill. You caught me off guard, and I heard in the room, and maybe I'm not the only one. I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to be able to have a little more of an organized response to this. So if you could come back sometime, give us a chance to at least recognize the importance of your role. You certainly do leave some shoes to fill here, and right as we're on the precipice of renegotiating our labor relations contract, it's been your voice in that regard, and your relationship and history with labor relations that has been one of the key differentiators as a board member. It's a tough skill set to bring to the board, and I certainly hope that the governor's office finds someone that can begin to fill the space that you have occupied here on the board. You've been a great voice, and I will have better things to say once I've slept on this. Thank you, and I can only imagine it's not something that you would take lightly, but you know, there's a lot of things that go into something like this, and I can only appreciate the considerations you had to bring to bear to be able to do this today. But wow, okay, what a day, and it's not even noon. Okay. Any other one that wish to say something? So would you be willing to come back sometime? We could have a better reaction to this.
Yes.
I'm not gone yet. The governor has not selected my replacement yet, so it's going to be a little while.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Don't rush, Governor.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. It sounds like there's a process at hand, and you know, I guess you heard it here first, perhaps, as I did. We've got a district that's looking for a representation. Wow. All right. So following today's business meeting, I'm going to use the gavel once more just to make this official. We're closing the business meeting, and we're going to take a little bit of time to receive a short briefing to update us on TriMet's Transit-Oriented Development, or TOD, efforts. And I see Guy already stepping up. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for today's board meeting. Amazing resolutions, a lot of great business that's being taken care of. I'm proud to be a part of an agency that has shown up in this way, and it's bringing some really good ideas and good resolutions to the table. So continue to see how that will unfold in the year that's ahead of us. And with that, is there anything more to say before we close up the general business meeting? Yes, General Manager Dessou.
I just want to say that both congratulations to Director Edwards, and also just to let the board know that we will be working with Director Edwards to set up a celebration for him and his family. Once we sit down with Director Edwards, we'll announce to you immediately so that we can do that and have a nice celebration and a reception for him and his family.
Good. And I'm just looking to my fellow board members. Am I the only one who didn't know this was coming? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, cool.
I'm sort of hoping that all of a sudden it's just like punked and runs away.
Right? I feel like my alarm's going to ring. I'm going to wake up right now and go, wow, I'm almost late to my board meeting. Okay. All right. With that, I conclude the TriMet board business meeting for today. Whew. Breath. All right. Guy Ben, please join us. You've got an update for us. What's up with TOD?
Good morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board. Yes, my name is Guy Ben. I am the Program Manager for Transit-Oriented Development, and I'm here today to give the board a brief update, and I'm aware I'm between you and your lunch, on progress with two projects that are now under construction. And these are shown on this slide in front of you. On the top right-hand side, we have the Hollywood Transit Center redevelopment, and on the bottom right, we have the East County Library at Gresham City Hall. And I think, you know, particularly just reference Director Edwards' last comments in his announcement. He's been a champion for Hollywood, so it's a pleasure here to be this morning to present the latest on this project. To refresh your memories, we've been to the board multiple times, and I'm going to be fairly fast because, you know, it's the end of a long meeting, and we have about 16 slides to run through. But this is this infrastructure project is updating the 38-year-old facilities that exist at the Hollywood Transit Center to support the delivery of 224 affordable housing units that are going to be built by Bridge Housing. Phase 1 construction is now underway, and anybody that's been past the site, and you'll see from the photos later in this presentation, is now well underway and is scheduled to be complete this summer. And really, just to highlight what is it, Temporary ramp has been installed and is operational. The demolition of the old ramp, which was not ADA compliant and had many issues, it also had the previous memorial to the events of 2017, has now been partially demolished above grade, and work is starting on the new stair ramp structure. Next slide, please. This slide we included just to give reference to what was there, and on the left-hand side you can see that in the aerial photograph, and on the right-hand side is what this project will deliver once it's complete. Next slide, please. Again, just to sort of put everything in context before we look at some demolition photographs, we can see 4 renderings on this slide, an overall plan on the top left-hand side, a rendering on the top right of the sort of public paseo area looking south towards a new ramp stair structure. On the bottom left, we have a rendering of looking down the new ramp stair structure, and on the bottom right is a rendering of the tribute space that is replacing the current mural that has now been removed from the old ramp. Next slide, please. Very quickly and very high level, where do we stand in the process? Members of the board and the public and TriMet leadership, attended the groundbreaking in October last year. The temporary ramp installation was conducted over December, over the holidays, and opened just after New Year. And then, despite the poor weather over the last week and a half, the old ramp demolition begun on schedule and is sort of well in process. And I think it would be wrong not to mention here the massive effort and the really exceptional work that's been done by our engineering, construction, and planning team to keep this project moving forward despite multiple challenges, and also by Raymore Construction, who are the lead contractor here, who've been doing a great job pulling all the strings and being flexible to difficult circumstances that we've all experienced. Next slide, please. This is, for those that haven't been past the site, this is a few pictures here in the next couple of slides on what's been going on. In the top right-hand side, it's called a temporary ramp. It's not really very temporary. It's going to be here for a good amount of time, at least through the summer of this year. And you can see it's quite a significant structure. On the bottom right, you can see the sort of amount of work that goes into it. Those are concrete footings that are required to make the ramp safe and stable so that it's seismically secure. On the bottom left, you can see the work that was conducted to make sure that the landing space for the ramp was ADA compliant and met standards and was safe. And on the top left is a dry well that was installed to make sure that stormwater, runs off the ramp and is treated appropriately. So you can see the amount of work that goes into a project like this. Next slide, please. Some pictures of demolition. I won't go into these individually. The Hollywood sign has gone, but that is, we're working with the Hollywood boosters that own that sign to support them in the provision of a new sign elsewhere within the neighborhood. In the center, you can see one of the more recent, just before the storm hit, of the progress on the deconstruction of the existing ramp structure. And just some general shots of other demolition work across the site. Next slide, please. The second project we want to cover very quickly is the East County Library project at Gresham City Hall, and also the public plaza space which will exist between the library and the MAX station. Again, to refresh your memories, this is a 95,000 square foot regional library and public plaza. Construction is underway, and we'll have a look at some photos in a minute and some renderings. Completion of the construction project is scheduled for the fall of 2025, and we're still, the county, who is the owner and leading this project, their library team is working to sort of identify exactly whether the library opens in fall of 2025 or early in 2026. As you can imagine, there's some ramp up once the building's been complete before the library will actually open. What's been going on? The excavation and deep soil foundation work has been in progress, and it started a little earlier, but it has experienced significant rainfall that we had over the Christmas period, and then now the ice storm. And as many of you, if you have been out in Gresham or you live out in that direction, you will recognize that Gresham got hit really hard with the cold east winds. And I was out there on Sunday, and it was still like an icebox. So hats off to everybody who's been working there and getting things going, because it's been challenging. Next slide, please. Some renderings. This is the external renderings, and I'll run through these very quickly. Top left-hand side is an aerial view from looking sort of from the northwest at the project. The top right is a street level view of the southwest corner of the project. On the bottom right, you can see the new public plaza space, and on the bottom left is the southwest entrance. Next slide. Top left, this is the main hall and atrium within the library space. A lot of use of mass timber. It's going to be an amazing space. And I don't think really a rendering does it the full justice, I think, what it's going to be. Then you can see a family room on the top right. We can see a reading area on the bottom right. And then significantly, and I think this is a huge win for the project and the community and the region, a new 250-seat auditorium on the bottom left, which will be available not just for users of the library, but community as well, which is a big thing. Further renderings, as you would expect with a modern library, it's going to have, tech and IT spaces to support different users and different members of the community. There's going to be additional makerspace, which is shown on the top right. There's a new north-south sort of pedestrian spine that we've worked with the county to create, which will link the MAX and the FX station or the FX bus stop, and that's shown on the bottom right. And on the bottom left, there's also going to be a children's play area to support families as part of the project. Next slide. So this slide here, and I'm hoping the technology works, shows an aerial view of the construction site, and hopefully when we press play, we'll get a time-lapse photography. You can see what's been going on throughout the various weather events we've had recently. Oh, can you play, please, Neil? Swimming pool, mud, lots of rain. This significant, and I think it's noteworthy, the county has really stretched to be able to put services and parking below grade here.
Oh my goodness.
Which in this weather, as you can imagine, is a difficult lift, but Fortis Construction, who's the lead GC, has done a great job. And I actually looked at this time-lapse camera yesterday, and it looks like it does now in the photograph in front. So they've sort of dug it out and continued going, dewatered. So amazing work. Next slide. So finally, before I let you go and have lunch, I just wanted, while we have the floor, to highlight that TriMet and the communications team and has done an amazing job in basically restructuring and redesigning the TriMet TOD webpage. And you can visit this at trimet.org/TOD. There's a new landing structure. It now has case studies, and most importantly, it has a library of other documents that all members of the community and the public can reference. Shows the planning studies that TriMet's been conducting. It shows where we have RFP documents, they will be included in that space. It also has a timeline of events and a news feed. So recommend you please go and visit it, and I'd be very happy with that to take any questions and or let you go and have lunch. Thank you.
All right, we've got some questions. Director Frisbee.
I promise to be fast because I know. But first of all, I just wanted to say this was such a useful presentation, and so thank you so much. It was really helpful. I was reading through it and I was like, oh, this is great. I also had the moment while I was walking around waiting for the bus the other day. I was like, what is this construction project? This is huge. Oh, this is us. This is the East County Library. So it was very exciting. Also, the new website is very usable. It is a great way. I really encourage folks, if you get as many questions about what's happening at Hollywood as I do, it's a really good way to link it. And my only tiny note, which I know what you love, is board members wordsmithing your materials. So I want to meet that need for you. Is because I think a lot of times the public visiting it, case studies doesn't mean a ton to them. So if we could have it say like, if there could be some indication that this is ongoing projects or something like that, I'm so sorry.
Point taken, happy to do that.
But mostly, I just wanted to thank you for this briefing and just emphasize how important this work is in the community. It is the other part of building a community beyond getting folks where they need to go, but helping where they need to go be accessible by transit is actually shaping our landscape so that that happens there. So thank you. That's it.
Director Wade.
Thank you. I really appreciate this update, mostly because we've come so far. I know that I think it was probably the first or second year that I was on this board that we started having conversations about transit-oriented development. With Director Edwards, Director Gonzalez at the time, we were sort of like newbie board members, and I remember just receiving a lot of information about this, but also specifically addressing the historical inequities that transit, public projects have played a role in displacing generations of communities that have called the Portland metro area home. So I just remember that piece talking about the difficult topic of displacement, gentrification, and how can TriMet do better to make sure that the people and the communities that have lived here can continue to stay in these areas, in these communities to thrive, when the landscape is continuing to change, right, with transit or other infrastructure projects. And so just for context for folks who weren't there several years ago, we have gotten a lot of community engagement from affordable housing providers about ways that we can really strengthen this, community service organizations, and I remember being a part of TIAC. There was just a lot of excitement really around this development and how we can do it in a way that's equitable and fair, and again, also addresses, the displacement and also just the housing market being very unaffordable for a lot of our Portland area residents. So all that to say, those are all very complex issues, but thank you for I think keeping all of those things in mind and developing, I think, a really good and robust and transparent program that hopefully many families and future generations of Oregonians can really take advantage of these public services that providing through our transit system. So, thank you.
Director Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate your presentation and the update as well. I'm just proud of the way TriMet has been moving forward and not only helping develop these different structures and that, but also the diversity. That is so important, I think, because they're not cookie cutter. They're giving the communities what they need. And again, as has been said before, providing access and providing a destination, not only getting on transit, but giving them a destination that's meaningful to the community. And so I applaud you for that, and thank you very much.
Yes, and this is just the beginning of this movement of creating more of these projects, and a reminder to our other agency partners, municipalities, counties, if anyone knows anybody at Metro. These kinds of projects are not unique to what TriMet wants to focus on. Our TOD team is positioned to help work with your pieces of land. If you've got a patch of land, privately held even, along transit corridors, TOD is beneficial on all fronts, and we are an active partner, as I've seen and heard from our agency, willing to step forward to have TOD happening on your parcels as well. So we're not just hiring, we're looking for more land for TOD projects. Couldn't resist saying that. Thank you. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I think we're done for the day. There's no more gaveling. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Go get your lunch.